Hi everybody and welcome to episode 51 of the Talk is Cheap show. Hope you're all well, healthy and COVID free and doing your best to get through this second national lockdown we're going through. Thanks to everyone for tapping in. We really appreciate your support and thanks for all the people who sent in their comments for last week's show. Really appreciate it. We've got another great show lined up for you today. I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. But before we go any further, it's my pleasure and honor to introduce my big friend, co-analyst, resident expert, Mr. Curtis Shaw from Curtis Shaw TV in the house. What are you saying, bro?
Hey, what's happening, bro? Good to see you, man. And you know what? I'm delighted with the guests we've got on today. I feel like, you know, when G Unit was kind of splitting up and then they all came back together.
You're not
getting back in business, man.
Yeah, man. That's a nice little lead in, man, to my next guest, the man whose name is Oxymoron. Mr. Deluded Gooner in the house. What are you saying, bro?
I'm there, man. What are you telling me, man? I mean, Curtis has made me lose my composure. I was keeping a straight face until then, man. I'm happy to be back, man. Feeling like in that, man. I'm back.
I like the G Unit analogy, but for those out there, we're not going to call him Young Buck.
You know, to me this early. Let's wait till we start talking about Arteta or something, man.
Yeah, man.
But Deluded, tell the people what you've been up to since you were last on the show, bro, because a lot's been going on.
I've been dealing with what Mesut also has been, man. I've been doing everything like you lot, dealing with lockdown, trying to keep up my health, trying to produce content on my YouTube channel and just, get better and better every day, really, and just try to be better than I was yesterday, man. Same old, really.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've been looking at some of your content, man. Good stuff, man. Keep up the work, bro. You know what I mean? Yeah. Respect. Curtis, what you been up to since...
Bro, same old, man. I'm trying to deal with them 5-kilometer runs, but they ain't going as well as they went the first lockdown, you know, gotta be honest.
Hey, you know what? That's true, you know, because since the second lockdown, I've been running, but we're here, our studio now is quite near to the Emirates Stadium. So I've been running around the Emirates. And at first look, you think, yeah, man, that's going to be fine, man. It'll be easier than running on the road. But you know what? It's actually harder. Yeah. You know, believe it or not. It's good though. But anyway, moving on, man. For those of you familiar with the show, you will know that the first segment we always do is to look at the news and notes. And news and notes, that is since the last show. The first thing that popped up is the sad demise of Ray Clements. So a lot of you out there probably wouldn't know Ray Clements that well. I mean, you might have heard of the name. But back in the day, man, he was like, you know, in fact, me growing up, I'm giving away my age a little bit here, but Ray Clements was one of those guys that I used to watch on a program called The Big Match back in the day. This is long before you, man, were born, probably. You know, The Big Match on a Sunday, Ray Clements playing for Liverpool and Tottenham, and of course, England, man. He was a great keeper and an icon of the game. So passed away at the age of 72. So that was sad news, and condolences to Ray's family. So, yeah, man, AFTV send our condolences there. The other news that's sort of ongoing, really, is the situation with COVID. Once again, it's affecting sport. This week, we've seen more people testing positive for COVID. I think they've said that last week it was 18, 20 odd across all the clubs, players and staff, including Mo Salah and, of course, our own El Neni. Curtis, what's your thoughts, bro?
I mean, this international break's been a bit of a farce, really, hasn't it? You know, when you're trying to play 3 games in a 2-week period, you're traveling to all these different countries. It's inevitable that people were going to test positive for it. So I think that FIFA and UEFA, they got to look at how they handle these international breaks moving forward, man. Because, you know, you saw Cristiano Ronaldo and Salah, El Neni. I see Kolasinac now as well.
Yeah, that was breaking. Yeah, that's breaking news.
Yeah, so get well soon, man, and that's not a lot more I can say really about it.
Deluded, you got any thoughts on that?
Well, Curtis has summed it up perfectly. For me, in relation to this international break, unless you've got any sort of qualifier for an official competition, I could understand it. There's a bag of pointless friendlies being played, and it just reiterates what I believe in that, footballers might be well paid, but they're guinea pigs. If this was any other job, we might be looking at health and safety. I know they talk about testing, but we're seeing players like in the Croatia game, his name's Vida, he used to be linked with us. 45 minutes at halftime, he's testing positive. Someone against England for Ireland got played 90 minutes and tested positive. Thank God no one's got in trouble with that or contracted that, but it's a problem. And you know, this is a byproduct. Can we really be upset that people are flying around and we were learning a lot about this disease and people are coming back testing positive? And you know, another byproduct obviously is the injury. So it's just a double whammy. And it's just like Curtis said, what more can you say other than it's a farce? Like, it's just been a farce, and this is going to keep continuing. You know, the only saving grace is that the next international break is in March. Hopefully there's the situation is better by then. But if he was a gambling man, who knows what that's going to tell. So like Curtis said, it's just a farce, man.
Yeah. Sooner we get those vaccines, the better, man. Although I know Curtis, he's saying that he's not going to be up in
I won't be at the front of the queue. Let's put it that way, bro.
I suspect that those vaccines will be mandatory for certain things like traveling and one of the other things, even sports. I reckon that.
Yeah,
the clubs will insist on everyone's got to have the vaccination. But you know what? I'm thinking about the whole COVID thing. You'll be aware by now of the news of Willian. He had this trip to Dubai, which seems to be in the news. Now, I mean, I know that part of the world, United Arab Emirates, you are allowed to travel there. You don't have to quarantine on the way back. But I was just kind of thinking out loud to myself this morning, was that the wisest move for Willian to make the journey over there? Let's start with, we'll start with Curtis. What's your thought on that, man? I mean, presumably the club gave him permission to travel there. I don't know.
I mean, no, I don't think it's been announced whether he was given permission or not. I know he's got a restaurant. He was probably over there networking and doing work and stuff. I mean, it's a difficult one. He's a human being at the end of the day. Maybe he needed a little downtime to switch off and relax and be in the warm weather. But I suppose at this moment, it doesn't look like the smartest thing to have done. But, you know, if he comes back with a positive test, he's going to miss a couple of weeks. So I'm sure Arteta won't be too happy about it. But it's a difficult one without knowing the full details, really, man. So,
what about you, Deluded? What was your thoughts on that?
I mean, again, Curtis has summed it up perfectly in a sense of, you know, it wasn't the smartest of decisions to be made, you know, within this climate and what's going on. It doesn't make sense. You know, we're not talking about this if you keep yourself in England or in London. I sympathize with him. I don't know for his situation with the Brazil squad. I assume he never got called up and, you know, you barely get time with your family and whatnot. So he probably saw this as an opportunity to go over there. I don't know if it was a family holiday or, like Curtis said, him having a restaurant in England, it could be marketing. Either way, it's not sensible. But again, it's like what you said, he must have been given permission, because again, if he's been called up to Brazil, fair enough. But to my knowledge, if you haven't been called up to international football, unless you're being given a certain period off by the club, surely you still have to report in training. Like Lacazette, all of these sort of players that haven't played for France and the rest of it, surely they'd be at London Coley. So again, he must have been given permission of some sorts, or the boys must have been given a day off or a week off or however long he's gone and he's done that. I just don't think it's not that it's silly, because, you know, there's been a bunch of people in normal walks of society going to Dubai and just going to Dubai in general. But I just think, you know, it maybe could have been a bit sensible. Like you said, there's no tests on such, but if he doesn't go anywhere, it's not a thing. So not that it's silly, but, you know, I don't think it was the wisest of decisions, really.
Yeah, I must say I would agree with that. And it will be interesting to see if the club come out and say, listen, the trip was, we agreed it. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, anyway, thanks for that, guys. Moving swiftly on then to our main portion of the show this week. Those of you who watched last week will know that we had a very interesting debate following the debacle of the Villa game, where the subject of that show was, is Arteta out of his depth? And just give people a little backdrop, that was because of so much of the fallout on the loss. People were questioning whether Arteta was out of his depth or not. So we discussed that in depth. We got a hell of a lot of comments and feedback from that show. So thanks to all of you who responded and put your comments in the comment section. Really, some really interesting comments there. Incidentally, a couple of weeks before that, we had Jordan on the show. And as people may know, he's a big fan and supporter of Arteta. And it was interesting that the comments that week were very much in favour. Because that was just coming off the back of the Man United win. But as I said last week, a week in football is a long time. And the comments and the narrative was very different after the Villa game. So anyway, moving on. So what I thought we'd talk about this week is we discussed some of what we felt was Arteta's shortcomings last week. What we want to know now is what happens next? What do we do next? and I've got our two esteemed guests on the show this week, and we're going to ask them. So, Deluded, since as you're our special guest this week, we're going to start with you. Give you the floor, man. If you could tell us, what do you think needs to happen now? If you're Arteta, what do you do before the Leeds game this weekend? So tap in. Let me hear.
Well, first and foremost, from Arteta to the players to everyone connected, they have to stop feeling sorry for themselves. You know, we have to get on with it. The games are going to get bigger and bigger, tougher and tougher. And I'm sure in May you want positives. You're not going to get that feeling sorry for yourselves. Let's review the previous, when we're all back in training, let's review our previous games and, you know, the goals we've conceded, the goals we've scored and the rest of the micro stuff. Apply the positives, not necessarily focus on the negatives, accept them, put them on a whiteboard and focus on righting those wrongs in the next few games. I think a lot has to be said for mentality, and Arteta made some interesting comments after the Villa game. I know it was tough for everyone to take them in, but he was saying things like, I wish there was a game next week, and he made comments along the lines of, I would have wished there was a game next week because some players might blame each other, some might take it on the chin, basically to see the mentality of his boys. And you know, we've got a tough game against Leeds. I think they've lost back-to-back games, 4-1 in both. As you lot know, like with Villa, it's or Leicester, apologies, one of those teams, it's irrelevant. So first and foremost, psychologically, you know, they've got to remember what they want to do and how tough it is. I'd say, I know there's a lot of heat around Arteta and the likes of Aubameyang, you know, they're not in form, but you don't become a bad manager or a bad player overnight. You know, I do think fans are too quick to proclaim someone's a genius and too quick to proclaim somebody's a flop. With someone like Arteta, we've got to approach this with balance. Like you said, Laurie, how you guys were talking last week about potentially being out of his depth. To a degree, he probably is. You know, he's a new manager. You haven't been in these unmuddied waters before. So you're going. This is why I said it's important to surround him with people that have kind of walked that walk. And you're only as good to a degree as your coaching staff. When you look at Edu and Arteta, it could work out for us. But I also have a degree of caution because they're new in their roles. So I'd say there's a lot of that. I'd say for Arteta, there's a lot of things he's got to figure out because, you know, I praised him for what he was doing in the Cups. I think he's brought a lot of goodness to the team. I think he's made us a bit firmer and harder to defeat. But with that same logic, I don't know why fans find it hard to just talk about what's not going right. We're not excelling. You know, a big reason as to come into this job, we talked about coaching, and initially you saw players like Mustafi and like El Nene. Now, you know, they're playing in form, they're doing all right. They might not be good enough, but he's getting something out of his tools. When I look at everything in an attacking sense, I sympathize with the lack of signings coming into this club and the whole mess that is Arsenal. But is he getting the best out of the tools available to say it's as white and black as he gets a new creative midfielder and this and that, and to say it's going to change? And the truth is not. It's not. You know, we look at Aubameyang. We can all recognize Aubameyang is a great player, but we have no problem with admitting right now he's not doing the job. So as much as I support Arteta and back Arteta, I think fans do find it hard and think you're necessarily criticizing him when you recognize that you believe he's the manager to turn it around. You're going to give him time until something changes. But you have to recognize that as much as it is the players, and I think the players' mentalities are short and he needs to change the squad and the rest of it, there's a degree of accountability he needs to hold because he's not learning quick enough. You know, we're going into Bielsa, game management tactician. He's a genius. He had Pep Guardiola begging for a point. I've seen Arteta kind of fail in that regards with game management against Dean Smith, against Aston Villa, and more so Brendan Rodgers, because Brendan Rodgers did a Jose on us, Leicester at home. And I think in game, he didn't react. As poor as the players were, he didn't react. So learn from your mistakes. Is too much going to change with Leeds on the weekend? I don't think so. I still think we're going to see several things. Has he had enough time to train with these boys? Who knows? But mentality's got to change. We've got to feel sorry for ourselves, stop feeling sorry for ourselves. And that's the only way.
You up on something there.
Here it comes.
About change. But I'm not ready for you yet. You hinted there about changes. I was going to say, would you like to see any changes to the starting lineup this week?
Yeah, man. I think every Arsenal fan, you know, it's always the one that's not involved that I and a lot of Arsenal fans call for. But without a doubt, you know, I'm a big Lacazette fan. But if you've been watching the last 18 months and this season, I know he's technically our top goal scorer. He's not going to do the business right now up front. You know, I want him to prove me wrong and make me look stupid if he starts against Leeds. But you've got to, for me, I know Aubameyang ain't been in form either. But the luxury he has is we know he can do the business. Let's put him back through the middle till he gets back in form. So Aubameyang for Lacazette definitely is one. I would like to see Maitland-Niles for Hector Bellerin. You know, Hector Bellerin, I think he's done okay this season, but he's also done poorly. And, you know, after the last game, I think we could all see, you know, he didn't do himself any good. So I would say those are the changes really off the top of my head. I'd say those two. Maybe, you know, the centre midfield one's a typical debate and one that I'm not sure, because apart from Partey, I'm not necessarily convinced on anyone. Like, I think El Nene's been in good form. But if we're going to Leeds and with Partey and El Nene, I get it. But can we get a Ceballos in there who I'm not necessarily convinced on, just based on what he tries to do on a football field, pass the ball forward? Can we get that? It probably will be Xhaka. And, you know, when you look at Leeds and how much ground they cover and whatnot, and the sort of game plan we went against United with, you know, would it be smart bringing Xhaka? I don't know. But I'd say Aubameyang and Bellerin, well, Aubameyang through the middle, Lacazette out, Maitland-Niles for Bellerin be the two ones off the top of my head.
What about the Pepe-Willian debate? Where do you stand on that?
I doubt Pepe's got to get a chance. You know, I'm not going to sit here and defend Pepe and whatnot. I just feel I agree with a lot of what Arteta says about what he demands from Pepe. And in isolation, it makes sense. But then I turn around and look at Willian. You do sound a tiny bit like a hypocrite as much as I support him, because Willian's body language, not that I care about body language, but Willian's body language is the same. He's made 10 appearances. He has scored none. He's got 2 assists based off that one game. I think you've got to go with Pepe. You know, at least Pepe is a bit unpredictable. You know, Willian, as poor as he's been given the luxury of getting, you know, building sort of match fitness and a bit of rhythm. You know, you can't give Pepe 20 minutes and things like that, throw him in against City and expect stuff. I don't know what's happened between Arteta and Pepe, because if we look at Pepe last season, you know, his strongest period was probably towards the end of the year with the FA Cup final and whatnot. So I don't know what's happened between that period and why he started the season off so slowly. But yeah, man, Pepe's got to be in for Willian. You know, a lot of things that was said about Willian, Premier League proven, hit the ground running. You know, you make your manager and the people above him look like an idiot with these performances. But that's what I was saying earlier about Arteta, because as much as I'm not fond on Willian, not one single attacking player, Laurie, is excelling. So it's something that the management's not doing. And Willian's statistically creating less chances than he would be under Frank Lampard at Chelsea. So there's something in the dynamics. That's why I said you've got to look at it with balance and attribute blame everywhere. It's not one singular pillar that can just accept all the criticisms for what we're not doing.
Okay, thank you very much. You've made a very strong and robust case there. You also said you're a big fan of Willian. So let's turn to somebody who's a keen advocate of Willian, at least before the season started anyway.
No. You need to calm down on that one, you know. I got to start pulling him up on this, you know, man.
Mr. Willian advocate, Curtis, you're in the house. What are you saying, bro? No, on a serious note, what changes? I mean, I asked Deluded, what changes would you like to see to the team, if any? I suspect you're going to have a few changes. So tap in, man. The floor's yours.
Do you know what I think? You know, Deluded said most of the changes. I think Aubameyang has to go central now. You just got to give him that opportunity to play in the penalty area. You know, he's seeing Aubameyang cross a ball from the touchline. It makes me feel sick, man. I don't like seeing that. In terms of Willian, I think, you know, he's had a fair chance. You know, he's had a good little run in the team. I think Pepe deserves that same opportunity. I think, you know, my problem with Pepe is kind of like, you've had this situation now with Emery. You had it a little bit with Freddie Ljungberg. There has to be something fundamentally that managers are not seeing in him. Maybe he doesn't train well. I've said before, I'm not the biggest, like, it doesn't bother me that much if you're amazing in training or not. It's what you do on the pitch on a Saturday that I think is the most important. I think Ainsley deserves a chance. You know, how are you getting picked for England, but you can't get a chance in the Arsenal team that's mid-table when Bellerin, you know, Sterling and Grealish, these men have ripped him apart this season. I think David Luiz has to come back in the team. I don't think David Luiz really gets the credit sometimes. He's one of them players who we're quick to criticise and very slow to praise. I think he's been instrumental in Gabriel settling into that team. And I think Rob Holding, you know, I'm not convinced by him. I don't think he's the long-term solution. I would like to see a change of formation. I saw a thing about Kieran Tierney and his crossing for Scotland at left back, and I think Tierney and Saka could have a good partnership on that left-hand side. But with them all being away over the last 2 weeks, Arteta hasn't had them all on the training ground. I think he will continue with 5 at the back. Obviously, El Neni has tested positive for COVID, so he won't play. So I think it's got to be Danny Ceballos who comes in. I don't think Granit Xhaka and his lack of mobility, I don't think that's a good idea against Leeds, who've got a lot of energy in there. You know, Ceballos, you've gone back to Real Madrid and said, yo, we want him for another season. We're happy with him. He finished the season well. And now the guy can't get a kick. Again, these are decisions where you look at Arteta and go, well, if you brought him back, why bring him back to leave him on the bench, you know? So I want to see Ceballos, Ainsley, Pepe, and David Luiz and Aubameyang through the middle. But I don't expect to see all of them because this guy's a stubborn manager, man. I still wouldn't be surprised if Lacazette's through the middle, man. It wouldn't surprise me.
I think it's
indeed that lack of flexibility we spoke of on the show last week, and we kind of zeroed in on that, and we highlighted that as what we thought was one of the areas of his management that he needs to improve on. But so that's an interesting comment you just made. Whilst we're on that subject, it's kind of closely related, really. So I think we'd all agree, everyone would agree, even the most ardent of Arteta fans would have to agree that this season we've shown a general lack of creativity. We're not scoring goals. So I know you hinted on it, Curtis, and I'm going to start with Deluded for this one. So we need to address this problem of not scoring enough. So Deluded, let me ask you, what would you like to see done to the team other than the changes you made to see us be more creative? What does he need to do?
Well, to be fair, I don't think there's much he can do without better players. But saying that, I do see elements. I'm not going to say that we can do it to the level I want, but you look at the second half against Sheffield United, you look against Fulham. Yes, it's against Fulham, but it seems to be a psychological thing because when we're chasing the game, like against Sheffield United, first half we weren't doing it, but suddenly there's 2 touch, 1 touch. People are making runs. People are making runs that are not going to get the ball. As me and Curtis spoke about on my channel, that creates movement and that creates space for other people to exploit. All of that fundamentally can be done on the training ground. You know, Arsene Wenger, fair enough, he fell off towards the end, and there was a lot of criticisms, but he had many different players and many different statures of players, even when he's playing cup games, and fundamentally you could still see the 1 and 2 touch passes. That's one pet peeve I have. I think we do things in too many touches. Things we can do in 2 touch, we're taking 10. I think our build up play is slow. I think when you're doing slow possession, you know, there's a lack of movement, you're taking more touches and passes, you're allowing the opposition to set up defensively on much better. You're not exploiting them on the transition, and you're almost defeating yourself because there's all of that. Then you've got to deal with a low block. So we're kind of defeating ourselves before we get the opposition. And I think a team's a reflection on what you're doing as a manager. As much as we need to improve defensively, and I praise him, and improving defense is fundamental, to a degree you kind of have to work with what you have, and we're not really going to be a massively great defensive team without, you know, better defenders. And I'm not criticizing him. You know, you look at our team, probably only Kieran Tierney and Gabriel you could say are real defenders. You know, shout out to David Luiz, but they're the only ones you could see being part of a great defensive side. So we're not going to have this Chelsea, you know, when Chelsea conceded like 14-15 goals, or a team like the prime Italians in the 80s. So we do have to improve that, but to a degree you need to work to your players' strengths. It doesn't matter if we talk about Willian, Aubameyang, Pepe, whatever player, Lacazette. Some of these players are poor, and they're the reason they're playing poor. But for the manager, there's got to be a reason as to why none of these players are excelling. So fundamentally, you need to do something on the training ground to create more goal scoring opportunities. He speaks about wanting to score 90 to 100 goals. It's not that simple if you're going to play like this. Like last season, we could see defensively and say, okay, he's playing to a level. If he gets this Gabriel or if he gets this player, we're going to see an uptake. When we look at it in an attacking sense, of course, if you sign better attacking players, we're going to excel, but we're still going to struggle. We've scored 9 goals this season. That's by design. That's not by accident. You know, these players have to pull it out in games, but I have to cut the players some slack and say, to a degree, they're only doing what they're being told by a manager, really and truly. Maybe Arteta's got a bit of a handbrake and it's preventing him from freeing up things. And I thought maybe the signing of Partey would be a bit more. And I actually feel, as a fan, I was personally a bit too complacent on the attacking sense of it under Arteta, because he's obviously Spanish. He's obviously come from Barcelona's academy. He's worked with Pep. He's worked under Arsene Wenger. He spoke even about 90 to 100 goals. He speaks about Arsenal value. So I thought, okay, cool. The priority next season is clearly just to this last season is just to improve us defensively. So I thought it was almost a given. He's going to get attacking players. He's going to have more time. We're going to see more of that free flowing football. And I don't see it. And as much as I feel the players are playing poor and he needs his own players and all of those excuses I extend to him, I don't think he's getting the best out of his team. I do think there's too much structure in relation to how we play in the final third. And it's not a coincidence, not a single attacking player, probably Saka if you're pushing it, is excelling or playing anything close to their potential, Laurie.
Okay, thanks again. That's very well said. So Curtis, on that same theme, so we do have to give Mikel Arteta some credit in that during the time he's taken over, as well as the 2 cup wins we've had. He's made the team more resolute. Defensively, we are much improved since last season. But a lot of people would say that that improvement in the defence has been sacrificed at the altar of our attack. So how would you like to see our creativity in scoring goals? How would you like to see that problem addressed?
Yeah, no, I think Deluded covered it well, man. I just think he's got to take that handbrake off. To me, like, we're so slow in transition. And that's the problem. You can play this formation. Conte played 5 at the back for Chelsea and he ripped teams apart because when they won the ball, the team exploded into the counter-attack. The wing-backs got high. The wingers were high. I just think a lot of it is the impetus. And it's like, you're using Aubameyang hugging the touchline like an out-and-out winger when he should be getting in them positions where Mane's getting. I look at Pepe a lot of the time. Most of the time when I see him get the ball, he's on like the halfway line with his back to goal. He's not one-on-one with the fullback high up the pitch close to their penalty area with the fullback overlapping him. I heard someone yesterday talking about Mahrez and they were saying, Mahrez this, but I'm saying Mahrez gets the ball one-on-one with fullbacks on the edge of their penalty area and Kyle Walker's on the overlap. They're almost double teaming the fullback. You never see that with Pepe. I actually think Pepe's best partnership was with Maitland-Niles as well last season. So I think Arteta's got to be a bit less structured and just say, look, the strength in our team is our attack, in my opinion. It's not the defense and it's not the midfield. Get more out of that front 3. You might want this defensive structure, but you don't have the players to have that solid defense yet. As you said there, we've only got 2 real quality defenders. So we might have to sacrifice that defense a bit. And people say we're structurally better this season defensively. But we've lost 4 out of 8 games. All right, we might have conceded less goals. But whether you're losing 1-0, 2-0, ultimately is not that much of a difference. We can't really take positives because we went to Manchester City and lost 1-0 rather than 2-0 or 3-0. Ultimately, your aim is to win them games. So I think Arteta's got to be a little bit more expansive, a little bit more free-flowing. You look at the way we were counter-attacking last season when we won that FA Cup. You have to bring that into the league form. And this is why I've been so harsh on him, because to me, you judge a manager off what he does in the league, because that is, can you produce that every week? Turning up for 2 or 3 cup games and winning the FA Cup, that buys you a little bit of time. That gives you that little bit of credit in the bank and that emotion that, we won the FA Cup. It was great. But every week when you're facing all these different managers, can you produce it? And at the moment, I feel like he's being outdone tactically by managers. Some managers who aren't even necessarily better than him, but just because they're a little bit more flexible, they're a little bit more proactive than he is. Dean Smith came from League One. He was at Walsall. This guy hasn't had the upbringing that Mikel Arteta's had in football under Wenger and Pep Guardiola. But these guys are actually outsmarting him tactically, So he's got to wake up. I think the next 3 games for Arteta are going to be a massive, turning point one way or another in this season. He's up against Bielsa, Nuno and Mourinho in the next 3 games. So he's got to sort it out quickly, man, because the pressure's building on him.
Absolutely. Yeah, well said. So far then, we've talked about, in terms of changes, we've discussed people we think should come into the team. By the way, I agree with both of you guys on what you said. So we do agree that the likes of Pepe and should come in and David Luiz should come in and Aubameyang play through the middle. We spoke about the formation. We spoke about how we may address the lack of creativity in goals, which is changing the mindset and quicker play, quicker passing and so forth. One of the areas that has been highlighted as a possible weakness of Arteta, and it's something that myself and Curtis spoke about last week, and I'm very interested to hear Deluded's views on this, is a lot of people have questioned Arteta's man management or lack thereof. So for example, we listed on the show last week a few players where we feel that he hasn't really got on top of things from a man management perspective. So for example, Ozil, the way that was handled, although some people, Jordan, for example, we had him on the show, he felt that Arteta handled that really well, where he basically lied and took responsibility for the upper echelons of the club by saying he looked Ozil in the eye and blah, 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 which, you know, let's be honest, most of us don't believe. But anyway, some people might say he was right to do that. But then there's the way Lacazette's been treated. A lot of people are not happy with the way he kept getting subbed and stuff like that. Pepe, we've spoken about his lack of game time, only starting once in the Premier League all season, which I think is ridiculous. A lot of people have said that that's contributed to his lack of confidence on the pitch. And indeed, Pepe's actually come out and said recently that he's been disappointed in his lack of game time. I suspect it's more than just disappointed. Maitland-Niles, a lot of people like myself and Curtis, and I think even you hinted at it earlier, that he's not really been treated well in terms of the amount of game time he's had. And then there's the Saliba situation. No one seems to know what's going on there. And indeed, Arteta himself has said he's made mistakes in dealing with that. So I just wanted to ask you, Deluded, what is your thoughts on Arteta's man management? Do you think it needs to improve, or do you think he's got it spot on? And how would you like to see him address this situation going forward?
I mean, I believe in Arteta, but I mean, he's at the start of his managerial career. So every single facet towards being a manager needs to improve. He's not won a Premier League or done anything like that. So, you know, everything needs to improve. I would like to see a bit more clarity, but again, it's a tough, because when you look at Arsenal, we all know, like, unless you're fully there at the situation, there's always more little details. Like the Ozil one baffles me. You know, he used him about 10 times or so. After lockdown, he didn't play. I think it's not that we all know, but we can all agree that one there's people affecting the thing above his head and whatnot. And the Ozil one's an interesting one for me, and one that I look at Arteta a bit sideways for different ways, because if I'm Arteta and I'm not being given money, and we're talking about creativity, and I did plan on being able to coach that into my team, I need that. You know, you can't expect me to put nails in a wall without a hammer. So Ozil being the hammer, was never creative man, should have been brought in. If you're not going to bring me one in, I'm going to say I have to at least register this guy. I hear what you're saying about his contract and wanting to whatever, but the same luxury that my predecessor Emery cut himself, you at least register him. So I'm not saying Ozil will ever be set up for failure by Arteta, but we're calling for him for two reasons. We ain't brought in a creative man. He brings in a creative man. He shows us creativity on the field. Not one person speaks about Ozil, whether you like him or not. And you haven't shown us yet, so you haven't really helped yourself.
Sorry, could I just interrupt here? Are you saying you'd like to see Ozil back in the fold? Because I know previously you used to cap for Ozil hard.
I mean, Ozil isn't going to help our fortunes and whatnot and change us, but you'd have to say, yes, whatever you think about Ozil, there's no creativity. I'm not being shown anything to say you're going to fix this in-house right now. I'm not being shown anything to suggest we're going to move for one in January, and you haven't brought one in for whatever reason. Edu, whoever hasn't brought one in, so you have to use what you have. If you use Ozil and it's the usual Ozil that we all see, fair play. But fans are always going to look at that. I think his man management is decent, to be fair with you. I think there are things that baffle me, like the Saliba one. I'm onto Arteta as much as the whole club, because if you look at Saliba and you hear he's a Rolls Royce and you have a 5-year period, for me, I see investment. Investment means you constantly water your crops. You look after him. If you've seen that he's not levels and not ready to help right now, cool. Early days in preseason, put him in a structure where, you know, we hear all the rumblings about his personal life and stuff, where he's at a place where he can, you know, find peace with that and also focus on football. It seems like to fans, when you're offering him around the last few days of the transfer window, that doesn't fill me with confidence, because, you know, you want him to, it's not a youngster that you just don't care about. This is someone you see as being central. So you put him somewhere where he's going to adapt quicker, where he's going to play 20, 30 games, where we've actually screen test the club, the philosophy, and who's actually going to manage him temporarily on a week-by-week basis. So I think his man management's good, but it's also a bit mixed. I think also the manager, regardless of if I feel Lacazette should start or Pepe should start, especially when we haven't got a leg to stand on, or he doesn't because we're not playing well. He does have the luxury, whether I believe in these things or not, to use the team in whatever way he pleases. You know, if he deems that if Arteta deems that Lacazette is showing him what he wants on the field, I might think it's crazy, but what can I really say? There's a lot of question marks, and I'd say one reason I'm more annoyed about Arteta this year is there's more questions than answers. He was solving a lot of answers last season. You know, I could see a lot, and it's not that it's all him directly, but we knew from last season this was going to be a thing, so we can't be surprised. I think his man management is decent because we all mentioned Maitland-Niles. It might have been, you know, paper talk, but he said I stayed because Arteta convinced me that this is the best place for me to improve. So I don't know if
but he's not playing him.
Again, he's not playing him, and I agree with that. But there must be something said then. If I can feel whatever I want, but if Maitland-Niles feels this is the best place, and that's it, it's all fair. It's all fun and games to him. I don't really see, because I don't know. And I one thing I liked when he came is that he didn't necessarily have allegiances to players. But now I'm not really seeing anything, because you look at Xhaka and David Luiz. David Luiz wasn't supposed to play against City and Holding came in. Xhaka was dropped for United. I'm not saying these were the wrong things. I'm not really sure game by game who he sees, but I think his man management can improve, but it's decent. There's been good cases.
Let's ask you on that then. How do you think the handling of Guendouzi was? Because we know now that Guendouzi left the club, albeit on loan, but it would appear that he was pretty much forced out by the manager. I'm also seeing today where I've seen that the reports of Guendouzi since he's been at Hertha Berlin have been very positive. In fact, the director of football has been waxing lyrical about him. So what was your thoughts on the way Guendouzi was handled, or are you happy with that?
Maybe in relation to him at Hertha Berlin, early on the pennies dropped. He's realised the opportunity he's had, he's lost, and he's taken it for granted. You know, a lot of these good Guendouzi behaviour problems, in hindsight, I'm not going to say we could have seen it coming. His old club, Lorient, talked about this sort of stuff. I feel with Arteta and Guendouzi, it was a thing where he just broke the camel's back. You hear he used to do some nonsense under Emery, allegedly. You hear how when they went to Dubai, you know, Guendouzi was carrying on, and allegedly when he's watching training sessions back, Guendouzi's acting up. You know, you don't want to, it's a thing where he's looked beyond ability. He just can't trust you and you're a headache. Look how we're speaking about the many problems before that topic. How many things have we spoken about to deal with Arsenal? Arteta is probably thinking about them. Do you really want to have to deal with Guendouzi's hyperactive nonsense game by game? You're focused on getting patterning leads on the weekend, hopefully. You don't want to deal with that. I would have loved to have seen Guendouzi stay. I think he's got a bit of fight. I think the ability's there. But I think he's just looked at it as like, I've given you chances. Remember, he started him against City away from home. So he does believe in his ability. But he just said, I just don't trust you as a character. So you're off now. And he's got a year left or so when he comes back. Hopefully he plays well for Hertha and we can get some money. I hope them two can bless the beef, because I think he could be a player for us. But I think he's gone, and I can't really have any complaints. It's like Wenger and Szczesny. Give a man bare chances. They're just stressing you out. He doesn't care how good you are now. You've lost the manager's trust. I know he said, everybody's chance starts again and all of these things, but we all knew Torreira, Guendouzi, Mesut Ozil, they would play no part this season. So it is what it is, to be fair.
Okay, thanks very much. And Curtis, the same question to you. Arteta's man management skills, or lack thereof, have been called into question. I know you had a few things to say last week, so you don't want to go all over it again.
No,
keep it brief. What do you think? Do you think man management needs to be addressed, or are you? Well,
I think he's just got to be a little bit understanding that in football there are a lot of different characters, and I think, you know, he probably saw Manchester City where that dressing room was very settled and very together. And I think when you're in a dressing room that has a lot of success, it's a lot easier to manage because ultimately the mood is good and everyone's happy. You're winning trophies. He's come into a dressing room now that had issues. Where I'm really judging Arteta now is ultimately when a manager comes into a job at a football club, the previous manager has been sacked because there was a problem. Emery went because there was a problem. He came in, he uplifted the dressing room. We won the FA Cup. He put a bit more belief into the team. We won the FA Cup. He got Aubameyang to stay and that. But I think the judgment period really starts now, because sometimes as a manager, and you've seen it with managers, they come in, they say, oh, you know, they get that new manager bounce. You lift the dressing room and then it settles. And then it's like, right, now we're really going to see what you're about. And that's why I'm kind of looking at Arteta, because he actually surprised me last season winning the FA Cup, and some of the goals we scored, I was like, wow, we're onto something here. So then when I've seen how we've played this season, it's like it's flipped it on its head, and I've been like, raw, like that's the total opposite of what I was seeing last year. So now I'm kind of judging him a little bit more harsh, because I'm like, let's see what you're really about now. You've come in and won an FA Cup, but we've seen Wigan win FA Cups. We've seen Portsmouth win FA Cups. Winning an FA Cup doesn't necessarily mean you're a great manager or that is a great team. It's what
Wigan won the FA Cup and got relegated in the same season. So yeah, you're right.
And there you go. There you go. So I looked at the FA Cup as a building block. You know, that's a great. We got in Europa League. We got that addition of cash. You convinced Aubameyang to stay. You've got to build on that. So what I don't want to see him do is take us back to where we were when Emery left, and then, you know, the manager. Because I think Arteta's got to be careful. At the moment, you've got the trust in that dressing room of the players. Clearly, Mesut Ozil isn't going to like him. Maitland-Niles is probably looking at him a bit sideways. You know, you ain't got to lose the whole dressing room. You've only got to lose 4 or 5 big characters and it's gone and you can't get it back. So he's got to be careful. He's got to be careful. But his man management, I think he's learning on the job. So he's going to make mistakes. But I think if they're winning games of football, they'll forgive him for his mistakes.
Okay, that's great, man. Listen, I'm conscious of time. We're moving on. We're moving on at a good pace. I'm enjoying your contributions, but we're moving on all the same. I just wanted to ask Deluded very briefly. Another one of the areas that's been highlighted as an area of concern is the lack of proactivity in Arteta when it comes to his substitutions. So, for example, typically what we'll see is 65th, 70th minute, and you know what's going to happen. It's going to be Lacazette for Eddie, or it may be, you know, Pepe for Willian. But pretty much they're all like for like, and it all seem to happen around the same time. A lot of people have said, myself included, I've been quite vocal on this, that I'm not happy about that. Curtis has made similar assertions. I've just wondered what you thought. Are you happy with the way he manages from the sideline in terms of the substitutions, or would you like to be more proactive?
To be fair, everyone, including myself, thinks they probably know more than the manager. And I mean, he's brought on Pepe against Sheffield United, and I think Eddie against West Ham, and it's worked. We've got 3 points. Both of them have scored. But I'd say there was one real thing that annoys me about Arteta. We know we could talk about game management. I can find positives and negatives. I'd maybe say the subs. You know, he knows more about football than me, but that's probably the one thing. It is a bit slow. It is a bit, you know, it's easy to guess who's coming on. You might see a Maitland-Niles in the last 5 minutes as we're trying to shut out the game. So yeah, I would like to see more proactiveness with the subs. But even then, our squad, what real subs are there to make, really and truly? None of them are really firing. I personally feel, I know I'm going off topic, but in the summer, collectively, Arteta, the whole club, there's a lot to do, but we've tried to do too much and ultimately done too little. We're trying to renew deals, trying to bring man in, trying to sell players, trying to activate this release clause, trying to talk for Aouar. It didn't seem like we had an actual plan, and that's one thing I see. It's reactive. We're reactive on the field, we're reactive off it, and that's part of the reason we're here. But yeah, man, I think the subs could pattern up, but
one of the ones that stuck in my mind was the remember Partey's debut coming on the 82nd minute when we were 1-0 down to Man City. I mean, what's going to do that? I thought he was almost insulting Partey by doing that. I thought that was ridiculous. But hey, okay. So far we've discussed then changes to the team, guys we'd like to see come in. We talked about the formation. We talked about how we might address the lack of creativity. We talked about some of these man management issues. We talked about game management and the subs not being proactive. So just to bring things round briefly, Deluded, are you happy with how things are going? I know you're not going to be totally happy because obviously we've lost our last couple of games and, you know, we're sliding down the table a little bit. But in broad terms, are you happy? And do you think that he will make the changes that will bring us back on track?
Well, I'm not happy with recent form, obviously, but genuinely with Arteta, I am happy. That doesn't mean there's not things I have to say about him. I always feel when you talk about, are you a manager in or out? Everybody thinks just because you like a manager, you have to condone everything. I want Arteta to get it spot on. You know, I don't want to become a revolving door of a club. He's an Arsenal and it's in my best interest. That doesn't mean I'm just going to scream when we've lost to Aston Villa 3-0. Trust the process. I need to see a process to believe in. And one thing I want to see is a bit more of an imprint from him, really and truly. But I believe we're moving to a degree in the right direction purely because I see something to believe in. But there are rumblings, and the honeymoon period for Arteta is over, in the sense of he's not going to be afforded the courtesy of he's just taking the job. He needs to show something. I do think, like Curtis said in a previous stream, if we were playing well and we could see more of an imprint and stuff, there'd be something more to concede. It's like when you've got players playing bad, when you've got inconsistent results, when you're not immediately able to see what your manager's trying to do, and as a club collectively for years we don't know what we're on, it adds to the frustration. So I'd say show me a bit more of your imprint, because one pet peeve of mine, as much as I support Arteta, I would have thought by now we'd see a bit more of his DNA on this team. And if we are seeing the DNA of this team, what is it telling us, sort of thing? So I believe in him, but things can change, and I haven't got allegiances to him in the sense of, you know, if he evidently goes down the road and he shows he's the man, great. But if it becomes a position we need to review, then, you know, I'm not going to have any sort of allegiances. We'll need to revisit that. But I'm in he's here long term. We've heard we're planning for summer 2021. So how much is this season preparing?
So we're about a quarter of the way through this season then. So marks out of 10 for Arteta so far. How much would you give him?
All right, now I'm going to cut him because he's my guy. I'm going to say a 5, but collectively, if we're real, the whole club, players, Arteta, everybody, maybe even a 4. I'll give a 4, but that's being generous, you know.
Oh, bro.
Right. I know we're only a couple points off the table and whatnot, and you know, it all depends on how you look at it. But it's, for me, the one thing is I want to see the blueprint. You know, I do think the players need to really take in what Arteta is saying. I do think Arteta has a lot of things he needs to learn, but it was just about a blueprint. Because when I look at teams like Leicester, even Southampton right now, you know, Wolves, I see what the team collectively, from the player to the management to the people above, are trying to do, and you're almost jealous of it. When I look at Arsenal, I don't know what we're trying to really do, and to a degree, how much can Arteta say? You know, all he can do is just get us playing in a way where, similar to Pochettino for a number of years at Spurs, I know people won't be happy. We're looking at it, okay, and saying stuff like, why isn't Levy splashing the cash? Is it as basic as that? I'm not too sure, but yeah, man, it's a 4 for everyone. We're not, you know, the form isn't there. The inconsistencies haven't been there, whether we've won, lost, or drawn, or winning, losing, and drawing in games. I never get the vibe that we want to win a game of football. Very rarely, you know. Only, I'd say, second half against Sheffield, you know, the game against Fulham was good. I'll give credit to the players for beating a United side, a wounded United side. That's inconsistent. That's cup form for me, as Curtis said. You know, that's turning up 3-4 times. It's consistency over the league, and the players have got to want to fix up. Do you think you have to tell Liverpool and City players the ramifications for effing up week in, week out? They know. Arteta, it seems like Arteta has to continuously tell these players what's at stake, and mentality needs to change, you know, but Arteta can only do so much. And for Arteta, for me, fundamentally, learn fast. The things you're not doing well at, learn fast. And I have to say, are there people around him, you know? Because does he have yes men? For me, I want to put him with some real guys that are more experienced than him as part of his coaching staff to tell him, I don't think he should do that. You know, has he got people condoning what he's doing right now? Has he got any conflicting, with best interest in heart, conflicting reports from his coaching staff? And that's why who you're surrounded by is central. And I'm looking at the club, because if you know he's a novice, if you know, he is going to struggle a bit, it's his first job, surround him with everything. And have we done the best in the transfer market? Have we done the best in all other thingies? Only an Arsenal fan, each to their own, sort of thing. But I'm pretty sure us three would say no, sort of thing.
Okay. Well said again. See, this is why you need to change your moniker from Deluded Gooner to Not So Deluded Gooner.
Down the line, man.
So that nickname is an oxymoron, man. You need to.
Man.
Curtis, very briefly then.
Oh, man.
2 questions.
Go on.
Arteta so far, marks out of 10. We're a quarter of the way through the season, roughly. What would you give him in your marks out of 10 so far?
I'd probably go along with a 4. Because as I said, the performances, apart from Fulham, a little bit of the United game, bit of the Sheffield United game, we haven't been great. The results, 4 defeats out of 8, although 4 wins out of 8, depends how you want to look at it. You made a great point. Because I wasn't, and it's kind of the flip side to what you said, because I wasn't in favour of Arteta coming in, does not mean I don't want him to do well. I want stability at the club. You look at the 2 most successful teams in England right now, Liverpool and Man City, their managers have been at the club for years now. They've had a chance to build their own team and the success has come further down the line. So I don't want to see Arteta sacked because I don't trust the board to replace him and rebuild us. So ultimately, I want to see him have success at the club. Having said that, and as you just said, you made a great point. When I watch this Arsenal team at the moment, I don't know what we're trying to do. I don't know what his footballing philosophy is. I want to see a style of play that we can build going forward. And I want to see consistency. As I said as well, those two teams, if you're picking Liverpool's team and everyone's fit, you could probably pick 10 or maybe the whole 11. This Arsenal team, every time an hour before kickoff, I'm scrambling to see the team because I'm thinking, yo, what's he going to do this week? I ain't got a clue what I'm going to see on the team sheet.
Front and them thing there, man.
You know what I mean? And good teams don't do that. Good teams have consistency. You should know 9, 10, maybe even the 11 that is going to be picked on the Saturday. So get some consistency, get some structure. I know Arteta said he wishes we had another game, but I actually think he needed the break. I think, although it's been boring, I think he just needed some downtime to think, something's not working here. What do I need to do? Go on the training ground. He needs to bounce back this week. He's got a big 3 games coming up, man.
So let me just ask you quickly as well. Given what you've just said on today's show and previous shows, do you have the confidence in Arteta going forward that he can make those changes that we've spoken about today and pull the club's fortunes around? Yes or no?
Yeah, I think he can. I believe he can because he showed last season. He's beaten a lot of the top managers, albeit some of them have been in cup competitions. They weren't lucky victories. He's actually outplayed some of these managers. So he can. He's just got to get over this little bit of stubbornness that I feel is holding him back at the moment. So he can. Yeah, he can.
Deluded, very quickly, yes or no answer. Do you think, given some of the concerns we've highlighted and some of the things you've spoken about today yourself, looking at Arteta, do you think he's capable of turning things around and making the changes required? Yes or no?
Yeah, if he finds the balance between what he wants to do and his own, like Curtis said, and he's getting rid of his own stubbornness and kind of seeing that I might want to do this, but it might be best if I do this sort of thing. Why not? You don't become a bad manager overnight. I know, it's a different story if we beat Aston Villa, but he has. Again, I don't want to keep talking about the cup game. Just the fact of he's done well in big games. He has shown some good. He has shown some positive as well as negative cases with game management. So, you don't become a bad manager and players don't become bad overnight. I know some of them have never been good, but I believe in Arteta. Until he shows me something to suggest otherwise, I believe he can turn it around.
Okay, that's great, guys. Thanks for your contributions on that. Moving swiftly on again, our last segment for this week's show is one of our regular features, and it's called Ops of the Week, which is basically we look at Arsenal's next fixture and have a quick preview and see what you guys think, and I'll ask you to give a game prediction. So we know that this weekend we play Leeds away in the Premier League. Leeds are currently 15th. They've played 8 games. They've had a bit of a mixed bag. They won 3. They beat Fulham, Sheffield United, and they beat Villa 3-0. They've drawn the 1 game against Man City. That was a very creditable draw. They've also lost 4. They've lost to Liverpool, they've lost to Wolves, they've lost to Leicester, and they've lost to Crystal Palace. And I note that in those losses, they've conceded quite a few goals. So, so they can be scored against. His question is, can we score against them? So I'll go for Curtis this one. Leeds versus Arsenal this weekend, man. First of all, what do you think of Leeds so far this season?
I mean, I like the style of football. I remember when we played them last year in the FA Cup, and I think we was at that game as well, and they were bopping us off the pitch first off. I know we beat them in the second half, but they've got a great style of football, and that's what I'm saying. You watch that Leeds team, you can see Bielsa's philosophy on the pitch playing itself out. That's what we need. I think the thing is, Leeds are beatable. As you said, they concede a lot of goals. They kind of leave themselves open because they're very attacking, very quick. But the problem is, are we going to expose them deficiencies? If we're on the edge of our own penalty area, how can we exploit them? Do you know what I mean? So I think the sad thing for me is I can't honestly say with my hand on heart that I'm really confident we're going to win this game. I feel we should win this game because ultimately we've got a better team than Leeds. Leeds were in the Championship last season. No disrespect to them. again, it's down to the manager and how he, is he going to be fearful of Bielsa and pay him too much respect and sit back and let them come on to us? Or is he going to say, you know what, I need to play on the front foot a little bit more and show these lot what the Premier League's about? So I think we can beat them, though. I think all the Arsenal team will be rearing to go after that Villa game. They know that the fans would have been unhappy. They all see social media, so they've got to show some fight and bounce back. It's a must win for us. That's how crazy it is. It's a must win game.
Patrick Bamford quiet. Now that's a question that ago people may have laughed at that. With respect,
we probably would have, yeah.
Now we're asking a very real question: can we keep Bamford quiet? I mean, he started the season really well. I mean, Gabriel's been exceptional this season, so you would back him to do a job. But I mean, obviously Bamford's not Leeds' only threat, but he's the main threat at the moment. Do you think we can keep him quiet?
I mean, we're one of them teams, innit? You can go 3 months without scoring, but when you play against Arsenal, you're going to turn into prime Ronaldo against us, So Bamford, this is the guy that Eddie and Nketiah went to Leeds to replace, and then obviously that didn't work out. But Bamford, he started the season well, man. I think he scored more goals than anyone in our team. He's not a player I rate that highly, to be honest. He's got a goal in him, but come on, man. If we can't deal with Bamford and players like that, what hope have we got moving forward? So I'm not particular, but I don't want to say too much because, I'm sure it'll come back to home at some stage.
Very well with him. And he did to us. So, right. Okay, Deluded. So, right. So Leeds are what? They 15th in the table. We're 11th.
Yeah.
Normally, we would be expected to go there and get a result, let's be honest. But the way things have transpired over the last couple of weeks and the way the results are in the Premier League at the moment, you wouldn't bet on it. But what do you think of this Leeds team, and can we go there and get a result?
I mean, it's like Curtis said, I think they're a very open side. They play good football. I mean, as a neutral looking at Leeds, when Arsenal are playing, obviously, you can't help but admire them, similar to what I'm calling a lack at Arsenal. You see an identity, you see a blueprint. We're probably lucky that fans aren't allowed in there because them Leeds fans probably raring to go. I spoke about Vardy's team, Leicester, with their manager Brendan Rodgers and obviously Dean Smith, and Curtis alluded to it as well, how Arteta lost the tactical battles better yet. Bielsa, you better fix up and make sure you understand. And pretty sure if you don't, Arteta was probably given a phone call by Pep after that game and knows full well what to expect because they are open. Both teams will be open on the transition. It sounds stupid, but it probably comes down to which teams makes the least mistakes and which teams score the most goals. And when you look at it, Leeds are scoring more than us, but I think we've actually got a better clean sheet record than them if it's not tied. I think both goalkeepers have 2 clean sheets apiece. So it should be an open game. It probably means it's going to be an all boring game. Both teams are a bit tentative and negative, and it's going to take a little bit of individual brilliance. I can't lie, Laurie, you're kind of selling me a bit the way you're saying the stats. I'd want to be a bit more open. I was of the belief of let's not change too much because we haven't tactically had enough time, but I'm thinking, can we be a bit more open against them? Can we be a bit more expansive? Can we just shoot? You know
what? It's interesting that people talk about our defense and stuff and goals are scored, but if you look at our goal difference, it's actually -1. So we're patting ourselves on the back for our resoluteness and our improvement in our defensive record, but we have actually conceded 10 goals so far this season. We've only scored 9, so that's -1. Whereas Leeds have got a goal difference of -3. So I think we can see clearly there that both teams can be scored against.
Both teams can't defend, really and truly. Our defensive deficiencies are highlighted obviously more, but clearly both teams can't defend. I do wonder, like I said, it comes down to the mental game for me because tactics are one thing, but I look at Leeds, everything's going good for them. I know they've lost 2 4-1 defeats back to back. Forgive me if I'm wrong. That could be demoralizing, but they're as collectively as a club, they're getting more plaudits. We've got more question marks. For me, it's which goal, how does the team, if we concede first or they concede first, how do they react? Because it's interesting. You mentioned the Manchester United's Leeds game. I remember the first half of that. They were just Man City, sorry. They were respecting them way too much and just sitting back off. Then it was a different animal from Leeds in the second half. You had Pep Guardiola bringing on Ake, begging for a point. So I want to see psychologically, with the question marks of both teams, what happens if you score the first goal, but also if you concede it. I'm always going to back my team, but the way we're playing, you know, you can't convincingly say we're going to go there and get 3 points or get a result. We have enough, you know, if we just look at it without the other variables, but the players have to convince the fans, man, and the fans will do the rest. So you can't, as a fan, predict us game by game, especially these next 3.
Okay, well, talking of predictions, then we're coming very rapidly to the end of the show, so I'm going to press you for a result. Let's start with Deluded. What are you saying, man? What's the result going to be this weekend?
You know, I'm going to use my heart and go 2-1 Arsenal. I'm going to use my heart. We'll scrape it. It'll be an edgy game, but we'll scrape it 2-1.
2-1 Arsenal. Okay, Curtis, what are you saying, bro?
Yeah, I'll go 2-1 as well, you know. I think it's just a safe scoreline, innit? You can see us scoring, but you can see us conceding as well. So 2-1 and hang on at the end, man, you know, hang on to the win.
Well, I certainly would take any type of win at the moment. I think 2-1 looks nice to me. If we can get a 2-1 victory, I'll be happy with that, regardless of the performance. And that's not something I would normally say. But after the last couple of performances, man, or the last couple of results, we do need a win. So, okay, we're coming to the end of the show now, guys. Listen, thank you so much for making this a very entertaining and interesting and informative show. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you guys have too. I hope the people out there have, man. So please send us your comments on a lot of things the guys spoke about today. You know, would you like to see changes to the team, the formation? How would you address the lack of creativity, the man management, the game management, the substitutions? Do you think Arteta has got the wherewithal and the proper attributes to make those changes and to turn the club's fortunes around? So, yeah, man, tap in, people. Let us know what you think. Curtis, tell the people where they can find you, bro.
Yeah, man, check out the channel, Curtis Shaw TV, daily uploads. You'll see Deluded on there from time to time as well. Few other man on there. So, yeah, man, come true, man.
Deluded, tell the people where they can find you, bro.
I mean, Twitter, Instagram, and all of that. I think you lot can all see it. Deluded Gooner 04 on YouTube. You should literally just type in Deluded Gooner. You'll see a spam page full of videos by me. I'm always uploading like Curtis. So yeah, there's something if you're looking for it. Really, that's where you can get it.
Check out the content of both Curtis and Deluded. And you know what? Before I leave, Deluded, I was just been watching you on the show, and I'm looking at you. The more I look at you, the more you look like Pepe. Do this for me.
I get Pepe.
Bird wine.
Has anyone ever said that to you before, that you look like Pepe? They must have, man.
You should trolls be saying that as well, man. I need Pepe money, man, if that's what they're on. They need to stunt double come, man. We'll get out the ends.
Pepe in the house, man. Pepe in the house. But listen, guys, thanks for coming on the show. Everyone out there, man, thanks for supporting the show. Keep supporting. Keep your comments coming through, man. We would like to keep the show interactive. Like, share, subscribe. Look after yourselves. Keep yourself healthy, well, safe, and COVID-free. And we see you next week. We're out.
This video is supported by Profit Accumulator. Profit Accumulator helps you to earn extra money by doing something called match betting. Match betting isn't gambling. And when you do it properly, and I mean properly, you can't lose. Now you always see these promotions by bookmakers like Ladbrokes, William Hill's, Corals, offering a £50 bonus to customers. So you sign up and you might place a £50 bet on a coin toss landing on heads and a £50 bet on the same coin toss landing on tails. Now whichever way it lands, it don't matter because you won't win or lose any money because you've covered all of the outcomes. However, you get the £50 bonus, so you're still £50 up. Now, lots of people try to do match betting on their own, but it's very time consuming and not always easy if you don't know what you're doing. That's where Profit Accumulator come in. Even if you don't know anything about sports, they walk you through everything step by step, showing you how to accumulate money into your bank account. So get involved right now. Click the link in the description and sign up to Profit Accumulator right now.